I'm Jack,
And I'm Brenden,
and we're coming to you from beyond the terrarium.
where DIY meets naturalistic reptile keeping.
Enjoy. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Terrarium. This is episode number 4. I'm Jack Oliver, joined as always by my beautiful bearded brother, Brenden, up at the top there.
You're so sweet to me, man.
How we doing, Brenden?
Doing good, man. Just living the dream, hanging
Yeah.
out. We got the homie on today, so life's good.
Yeah, we are very, very excited for this guest. This is one of our really good friends and the perfect first guest for our podcast. We figured, there'd be no one better. So I guess with that, our first guest is below us here, Skylar Williams from Hail the Scales, Peach Throat Passion.
Peach Throat
Guys,
Passion.
automotive detailing, is that it? Or
Yeah. Automotive paint repair, detailing, whatever the hell you want with money.
all those brands and flipping tin. I should
Flipping Tin podcast.
Yeah, so welcome to the pods, guy. I appreciate you joining us.
For real. I was freaking stoked. I felt honored to be y'all's first guest, man. When you guys announced this, I was like hella freaking pumped, slightly jealous. But I was just like, yo, this is epic. We needed this so bad. The hobby needs more of this. Freaking, obviously, we already all talk about this nonstop, 24/7 in our group chat. So getting this out there for the public is just freaking the best thing that could happen, for us and for anyone that's willing to listen. So I'm stoked for you guys, stoked for the journey.
Yeah.
Great. Stoked to be a part of it on episode 1. I feel like we're going to put out some good information. So
yeah. I think this is going to be a really good episode. Thanks, man. Yeah, I think this whole podcast journey so far has been really good. And like you said, it's definitely something that's needed in the space, the reptile podcast space, as far as like DIY stuff. So appreciate that.
Heck yeah.
But we've got a good plan tonight to go through some of Sky's stuff. If you don't follow him on Instagram, first of all, you should. Second of all, he's got awesome stuff. I think we're going to focus mostly on his monitors tonight, and all the projects that go along with those. I know Brendan's got some questions written down, so I mean, we might as well just get right into it. Brendan, what do you think?
Start the interrogation.
Just interrogate me, please.
Where do you hide the dead bodies?
The dogs eat them, I swear.
All right, so you want me to go ahead and just jump right into it?
Let's do it.
Let's get rowdy, man. Let's go beyond the terrarium. Let's dive into it.
Let's do it. Let's do the damn thing. So, I guess first starting off, we don't like to go through the whole what got you into reptiles, yada yada stuff that every other podcast goes through. But for the people who don't know, why? I guess this overall why monitors? Why not? Cayman or something crazy, some big, why monitors and why does that group speak to you so much?
Good question. Better than a lot, for sure, of the first questions that you normally get on a podcast. And I definitely wouldn't be opposed to doing like some crocodilian stuff, but
nice.
I just know the way that my mind works. Like, I already don't feel like I do enough or accomplish enough for the monitors that I have now, and the plans that I have to set like in stone in this near future for their builds that I'm going to do, which is going to be like bigger than anyone does already for them. It's still not going to be enough in my mind for them. And I know crocodilians, I would just be on like such a whole nother level that I would need the giant backyard to have the huge pond. Like, I'd have to go all out for this thing. So maybe one day that would be awesome. But for me, the monitors are just tick all the boxes for me, as in like being an awesome lizard, something that's so intelligent that it'll literally look back into your eye and you can watch its pupil dilate as it's processing everything. And just the way they move and their colors. And I could literally just list off everything about them. Everything about them just ticks the box for me. And it's a new challenge every day. You never get bored because you're always learning something new about them, and they're always teaching you something new, or there is problems that pop up. So you got to deal with issues. People don't like to talk about it, but there's always issues with your lizard no matter what, which I definitely want to talk about some of the issues I've ran into along the way with builds and stuff I've had to modify along the way to fix certain issues that I've ran into. So it's not all, roses and flowers and smelly good stuff. It does get shitty once in a while, but for the most part, they just keep me going. Every day is a challenge and every day is exciting. And it's not just walking in and, oh, all right, there you are. I got to clean your poop. I got to change your water. And that's it. It's like a full on, I got to really be locked in to get something back from it. And then when it does give it back, it's so rewarding that you just like, you want more.
Yeah, man.
Was there something specific about the peach throats versus all the other monitors that you could have that brought you to those?
Mainly the fact that they're like, for me personally, they're the closest thing to a velociraptor out of like Jurassic Park, which like they like a velociraptor in Jurassic Park is like the apex dinosaur. It can freaking hear insanely. Its sight is so insane. The way that their eyes are, dilate and their pupils work and everything. And just being like the vision of a raptor. I feel like the peach throat and the Indicus complex really embodies that and just displays a really good representation on all levels of like just being a freaking next level lizard that just operates on a completely different level. I mean, people that talk to me about these lizards, they're always like, this is the fastest acting lizard. Like it's so quick, or, oh, they do this. And I'm just like, I've been trying to tell people this for going on 5 years now, because it blows my mind every day at just, their capabilities. It's next level compared to other lizards. So just them being so like, sorry, excuse me, just them being so different from everything else you see and on like social media and just the mainstream lizards of like Asian water monitors and these that get obese and you never actually see them moving around quick or anything, or like, I don't know. For me, they just were that middle ground off to the left field species that no one was really looking at. That was really incredible. And no one just gave them the time of day. So they found me as much as I found them.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we both saw your passion, I think, towards the beginning of that, when Daytona 2022, when you were still, I don't know, you maybe had like 2 or 3 at the time.
Yeah.
And you're still looking for them, and we scoured that whole show looking for the only peach throat just to have some guy take it out, get bit, all the whole nine
That's
yards.
right. It was me and you that were walking around, and the dude, I was like, oh, I feel bad, but hey. Oh, well, sorry, dude. I don't want it after all that. Sorry, you can put it back now. But
yeah,
I
but
mean,
we were on a search for that, man. So
that's basically what it's just been, though. Is just kind of honing in on certain ones and healthy ones, and seeing what I could do with fresh baby imports to learn as much as I can from each step, because that's really the only way you're going to figure out a species, is just putting yourself through the ringer and just trying to absorb everything like a sponge the whole way and learn from your mistakes, and don't be the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So you can't be afraid to switch it up and change it up. So that's one thing that I've been glad that people that have talked about my work with these lizards is, that's one thing they've mentioned, is I'm not scared to throw a method at the wall and tweak it a certain way to see what works. And it's worked so much for me that I'm not afraid to go against it. I'm always willing to try something new, or try to do technique or a food item, or whatever is creating success in a different facet for someone else. I'm going to try to apply it somehow, some way. So yeah. I think you just got to be willing to be like open-minded like that.
Yeah. And also like I mean, it shows through on especially on the Peach Throat Passion page, the like innovation you have for just like not only like you said, like food sources and stuff, but some of these builds that you started doing recently, like even the grow tent itself, like that you made for that your for Miss Blaze, you know,
Yeah.
super cool to watch, man, and like getting the kind of like backdoor access to the group we have, you know, it's fucking it's cool to see, man. I'm digging it. You're doing such a fucking great job. It's insane.
Well, I mean, we all motivate each other, so it's like we all send each other the behind the scenes of everything and get all juiced up, and so believe me, you guys doing your stuff gets me just as juiced to go out in my monitor room and fuck around with my stuff. So
yeah, man, we pump each other up for sure.
Definitely mutual.
One thing you mentioned, Sky, that I want to talk about just for a second is trying new things and experimenting and kind of learning your animal. And it's a topic that we've discussed and something we definitely want to focus on in episodes is like how you learn to understand not only like the species, but your particular animal. And like, I wonder, could you talk a little bit about just some of the things you've learned about both peach throats generally, and then like your specific animals as well, through experimenting and stuff?
Yeah, like that's a good question because I feel like people they take everything as they want the care sheet, they want the one
Yeah.
answer. And lately I was actually just telling one of my friends that I was helping this weekend, Amy, she's actually one of the Peach Throat Passion members. I'm trying to go out of my way to, help out the community and help other people reach this next level so that they can see, these behaviors with their animals. So um we're doing a build on that for her, for one of her animals. And I was just sorry, I'm having a total fucking brain fire right now. Fucking-
It happens, man.
I
It's
just
all
did a loop. So
good.
hold on, run that by me one more again. I just fucking what was the differences in the behaviors that I've noticed through experimenting? So I just told her, like, you're never gonna see any of this stuff until apply it. And a lot of people, they just want that care sheet answer, that one sheet answer. And it's like, we're going through, like, me and a couple of these other keepers that are putting in the work, we're going through all this effort and all this time to put out this content. And it's not, for me, Peach Throat Passion isn't just to throw up a post. Every post for me is to try to have a purpose and a message, and for someone to read off of, or at least visualize and see, like a visual that they can learn from. And lately I've been getting so many messages on between the Peach Throat Passion page and just off the, like, people hitting me up on the Instagram of asking monitor questions and shit. I'm just like, I can't individually give you guys how much I have to tell you for this to make sense. Please just use all of this content that I've been trying to put out for the past 3 or 4 years, because that's the only, it's not quick. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take you watching these videos and slowly applying each thing that I'm talking about in these videos and seeing what's going to click with your lizard, because each one of my lizards is individual. That's why I try to put out all this content so you can see what's working with this lizard versus what's working with that lizard, versus why I'm sticking with a certain scenario and with a certain one, because it's working, and I don't want to take steps back after we've already made all this ground. So it's like, you can't give it this cookie cutter care sheet for this species, or any species really, because it's all individual. So my whole baseline over the last couple of years is figuring out, a broad spectrum of where I need to be husbandry wise and catering wise, and then slowly making the tweaks based off of other things I see from other keepers with either the same species or similar species, and applying that, one thing at a time. And it's all about seeing how your lizard or whatever animal you're working with reacts to those changes. And if it's a positive, then okay, keep going with this method and let's tweak it in another way. Or if it's negative, okay, go back and try a direction and or something in the other direction. But that's basically all it takes, because I have certain lizards that are doing great with one scenario, and then other ones are reacting negative to it. So then I use a completely different husbandry technique with them, and I'm able to make the same ground. So to explain that to 100 people and knowing that they're only going to hear a couple words that I'm saying, I can't type that out that many times a day while I'm trying to do everything. So it's like, I really wish people would do what I've done, which is basically a highlighted version of what I've had to go through and learn over the past couple of years. Cause I'm just giving you a highlight reel of everything that works, all the positive stuff, trying to share some of the negative stuff sprinkled in there because it happens. But in the long run, you know, it's no cookie cutter overnight thing. It's all about just putting in the work, reading your animal day in and day out, and then, you know, doing your natural history work of what you're applying to your cage or whatever you're doing with your husbandry, and having a purpose behind it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Try the next thing, you know. That's like such a rambling answer, but there's no one specific thing that I do that I can say. That's why it's so hard for me to respond to people when they ask certain stuff. It's like, just go watch the YouTube. It sucks, but go look through the 100+ posts that are on this page specifically that are all peach throat content specifically. Like,
and watch your animal.
Yeah. And see what you're watching with me, read it. I know it's hard. People hate to read, but read some of the shit and you're going to be able to be like, oh yeah, that my animal does that. Okay. Oh, it reacts like this. Maybe I won't do that next time. Oh, well, you're saying don't feed it this many times. Well, I feed mine every day. Well, okay, let me do what you're doing. I won't feed every day and I'll feed smaller items. You're going to start seeing different reactions. So it's all about just, that's what I've had to do. I've had to literally just listen to people's bullshit and pick out the little facts and the little things that I know are real and apply those little things here and there and see what sticks. Cause that's all we have to go off of with some species. We don't have all this information and people going out and studying. For me, this is a damn bush lizard that people go out and catch and eat if they need to survive for the week. So
yeah, man,
they don't care about them.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to PetSmart and get the pamphlet on peach throat monitors. That's what you're saying.
I did, and it told me to go get the bearded dragon 40-gallon for it. It'll have everything I need in the 40-gallon, sand and all. Heat stone.
Yeah, heat rock.
Heat rock, fucking calcium sand.
Yeah, the curly Q UVB bulb.
Yeah.
But
no, I feel like if you're not willing to at least do the minute amount of research that you need to do, especially on a monitor, then you probably have no business even trying. Go get something else, you know?
And I hate to say it, but the amount of times that thought goes through my head, that if you can find my page and you can message me and you can ask me the most basic question without even going and looking at the page to realize that you'd probably get that answer plus the next 10 answers, lets me know you aren't even willing to do that, to watch you can't even watch a highlight reel on this species for an hour, but you want to be able to take care of this lizard and you want all these great reactions out of it, and you want it to trust you and you want it to run on your shoulder like you see mine doing. Little do you know, I'm out there almost just as much as I am a damn full-time, part-time job to get some of this reactions out of these lizards. So, you know, Instagram's awesome, but it is a highlight reel. So it's like, you can only do so much, and you can only, I guess you can only expect so much out of people. I don't know. You're only going to do what you're going to want to do. And you can't.
And like what a lot of people don't realize, and like we get to see this in the group, but you're normally the first one to post in the group in the morning, and you're normally the last one to post at night. And you're always working in the room, always. Anytime you post in the group, you are in the animal room doing something. Like, you live in that fucking room. No one, I guess, like, a lot of people don't realize that, apparently, because like you're the epitome of put in the work, you know?
Sometimes it's embarrassing because I'll catch myself like, man, every time I've talked to this person, a picture that I've sent to them has either been in my snake room, my lizard room. They probably think I have no fucking life. Mainly females. They're probably like, okay, this guy's he's a fucking creep. But now I appreciate that. I definitely do try to put in as much work I can, but you guys are definitely up just as early. Chaz and Jack are up just as early, or if not earlier, because the first thing I wake up to is a nude from one of them. So I'm usually not the first one up, but but yeah, I mean, you you can't not you can't not be that present with these animals
Mhm.
and expect any sort of success. Like these animals are their memory isn't long term. It's all bit they're what's long term to them is trauma, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
humans. So if they have a traumatic experience, that's going to be fucking imprinted into their brain. And anytime the scenario starts to seem like it was when that bad thing happened, they're instantly going to go to fight or flight mode. So you got to figure out whatever you're doing to initiate that reaction with that animal and don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
Do everything you can to not do that. Do what you have to do in another manner, in another way. You have to figure it out. I mean, I have lizards where it's like, all right, I'm only going to change your tub when I know you're asleep or at night or when it's in the afternoon. And if I am doing water changes in the middle of the day and you happen to be in a certain area, I'm just going to freaking wait because it's not worth it to go in there and take the steps back and freak you out and have this thing flying all over the cage when it's like, all right, I know if I don't go in there and disturb it, I could tongue feed it and we're good. But as soon as I go in there and disrupt its environment, that flips a switch to this thing and it goes straight into fight or flight. And the less you do that and the more you create a positive string,
Mhm.
it's not gonna lose the fight or flight reaction, but it's gonna be a lot less susceptible to kick that shit in immediately.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've noticed. And it's all a lot of times with a lot of times with these lizards and animals, they have a maturity period. So everyone wants this reaction right away out of a 6-month, 1-year-old lizard or animal when it's like this thing is in a freaking stage of life where it has two reactions: hide and fucking eat. It
Mhm.
doesn't want to be held. It doesn't want to be socialized. It doesn't want to be out in the open. That's it. It's trying to survive. So
Mhm.
no one ever puts themselves in the mindset of the animal. But once you do that, you're going to start making a lot of ground.
Yeah, man, the whole game changes when you do that.
Yeah.
It's
That's
funny
like
you say the behavior thing. It's like every time I go to change Kevin's water, if I start draining the water, he's like, "Oh shit!" Like the big monkey's getting inside the cage, and I'm
Something's
terrified
happening.
right now.
Yeah. He's like, I'm
Can't
about
do
to go into a tub.
yeah, yeah. So that's
and
funny.
that's how it is with the monkey lizards too, man. Like I've had them for about a year now, and I've touched them twice, basically. I go in, I tongue feed them because it's the same thing. If I go in there and rummage around, they fucking lose their minds, dude. And they're running up the wall, they're running on the screen up top, they're falling. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to do all that. So I just go in, I spray them down, I tongue feed them, I close the door, and I let them do their thing, man.
And people don't realize sometimes that's the best case scenario for a certain period of time because
Yeah.
you're building you're building the base at that point,
Mhm.
which is the foundation of trust. And from there is when you start building your strands, of okay, you can trust me enough to come out onto my hand. Now you trust me enough to eat a meal on my shoulder before you jump back into your cage. Like people I've explained it a couple of times, but it's like everything with lizards and monitors and stuff like that, you have to take an inch as a mile. Like that thing coming out onto your arm, then the first few dozen times or whatever, that's a fucking win every time it comes out on your arm, even if it's for a couple of seconds and then goes back in. And then the next milestone win after that is having it come out and, eating the meal comfortably on your arm before it jumps back in. Like people don't realize just that little act, that's a fucking huge win. That
Mhm.
thing trusted you enough now to eat its meal on you before it decided to flee back into its comfort zone. And at that point, it realized, all right, there was no more reason for me to be out here. So I'm going to go back to my comfort zone. Like,
Mhm.
you got to keep expanding on that and don't get discouraged because the whole thing for that lizard is huge for you. So just, you got to keep and being repetitive and doing it day in and day out because, like I said, it's their memories long term for the traumatic stuff, but it's super short term for positive and regular day to day interaction. So getting a routine, sticking to it, and figuring out what works with whatever animal, and doing those ticks and whatever, that's going to be the key to continue moving forward in a positive manner with them. So
How do you make their enclosures feel like their comfort zone?
For me, I try to tell everyone that they need to have a contact point, or at least like one contact point wherever they're at in their cage, whether that be their tail touching a leaf or like a vine that they can, like they feel secure to while they're moving out. Like, say this thing's moving throughout its enclosure, it needs to be able to be like touching something with another limb while it's making its next movement, so it feels secure. Because in the wild, that's when an animal is going to move around, when it knows at any second, if there's a movement over top of its head or off to the left or off to the right, it can dodge off somewhere and be safe. So if it feels it can move around its enclosure, and to the left there's something I can grab onto or ditch off to, or to the right there's the same thing, or I could go up or I could go down, that's when I've noticed I see my animals coming out of their hides the most, wanting to explore more, not being scared when I'm in the room. They're more likely to investigate. Like, say I'm in the room cleaning, a lot of times, like with my yellow tree monitor and the new baby Iris, every time I'm in there doing monitor waters or feeding or anything, those two will either be like basking or chilling in a certain area when I first get in the room. But by the time I look over and notice them, they'll be right up at the glass or at the door, like, oh, hey, what are you doing? Or moved over to the side of the enclosure that's closest to where I'm at, like peeking at me, like slowly moving around cryptically in their enclosure, feeling comfortable enough to come investigate without being too scared to just sit in their hidey hole and barely peek an eye out or barely peek a nose out because they're too scared, because as soon as they come out of that hole, it's too open in that enclosure for them and they feel exposed. So everyone always preaches that open enclosure shit, and I've never had a good experience with that. But as soon as I pack it, I see my animal immediately going back to natural behavior and way more willing to come out and explore and actually go to get a drink of water, because it doesn't feel like it has to, this is a life or death, I gotta jump over there really quick, get this drink of water and come back to my log and hide, or I'm gonna be freaking ripped out of this cage because that's when this guy wants to hold me. So I think giving them any natural hiding option and cover is huge key to everything.
Yeah. Combined with that, the forced handling versus the choice handling where they get to choose to come out.
Yeah, choice handling is probably the only key reason why I have so much success with all these lizards.
Yeah.
Is not going. I unless there's a visible emergency or a visual wound on a lizard, I can't tell you the last time I've gone in and grabbed any one of my animals.
Yeah.
It's all giving them like food to come out. I can't even think of a word right now. I'm totally brain dead. But just like teasing them to come out with food, or half the time they think something's going on, so they'll jump right out onto my damn arm or run out the tent or whatever. So sometimes it's not even an issue to get them out. It's more of an issue to get them back in the damn enclosure. And I'm like, all right, get back in there, follow the tongs back in there, or try to pick them up and underneath their belly. But yeah, force handling is never going to be a good thing for you.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays with like how fast the internet is and TikTok and everything, they want that instant gratification with whatever animal they're working with, and it just doesn't. When you're working with living beings, man, it doesn't work that way. And I don't know what it is, but some people just don't fucking get that, and it shows. You can see it. All you gotta do is scroll Instagram a little bit. You can name probably 4 or 5 people off the top of your head that are in that mindset, and they're never going to get that kind of interaction that people like you or Mike Stefani or these other guys get. It's just not going to happen.
Or you guys. I mean, we all put time into our species that we love. So
yeah.
But no, sure. I totally get what you mean. There's the people that buy to have it, and the people that get it because they truly love it, and you always know the difference between those two.
Mm-hmm.
It's instant. You can tell instant. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's sad in most cases because there's only one person that loses, and that's the animal. So
yeah. Absolutely.
But I guess all we can do is put the education out there and hope people gravitate towards it. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, I know. It's like you want to put out as much content as you can, but how do you get these knuckleheads to actually listen to it, watch it, and view it?
Yeah.
That's been my biggest thing, is like, all right, I made the leap to do this thing in the page, and it's been more of a success in the last 6 months than I thought it would be in a year. And it still blows my mind at how many people, like I said, can't just look at the post and read the post.
Yeah.
It's a fucking highlight reel. It's in the bio of the page. This is a fucking learning page for you. This is so you don't have to go through the 3 years of bullshit that I went through to even get where I'm at now. So,
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to talk to you, man.
I'm sure that's the case too. But
That's why
they don't realize I got no time in my day or life. So I can only give you so much of me.
Yeah, man. So to switch gears a little bit, you keep snakes also. You're not just a monitor guy. So how is the mindset with the monitors transfer over to the snakes that you keep? Like, is there is it completely different, or do you take some things from the monitor side of things and kind of implement it to the snakes and it goes well, or it goes better than,
I do implement a lot more stuff comparable to the monitors with the Barons racers, just because they're a diurnal, super active snake. And I've said before how they have a lot of similarities with just how they will interact with you and their environment and their prey items and stuff. And I make the Barons racers chase their prey items around just as much as I make the lizards chase their prey items around. And you can tell they get just as much fun, out of it. And they definitely react to the lighting, which is, a lot of people say snakes don't need lighting, which that's pretty crazy how the sun lights up the whole earth, which is where these damn snakes and lizards live, but apparently they don't need light. So you really will see a whole different behavior out of your snake, regardless of the species, just giving it an actual daytime cycle with some proper lighting. And I've noticed that time and time again, moving snakes around the room and having different UVB options on them. And I have a Baron set up just as an experiment with just a regular daytime LED light and a UVB light. And some days I'll have both of them on, where one's on each end of the cage, and some days one of the other's on. And seeing him use those individually and use them at certain times of the day when they're both on just goes to show you that they're setting off different. And he has tons of shade options and lower height options, and you'll see him use all of it throughout the day. And it just goes to show you that they're getting different feelings, or it has a use to them at some point for them to go use it, or they wouldn't.
Yeah. So you're saying that it actually uses the LED light on its
It'll
own?
go bask underneath that side versus the other side, which is the actual UVB basking light. So
wow,
yeah,
that's really interesting.
Yeah, and then the days when I have it off, it'll still kind of go over to that side, realize the light's not on, and then when it does want to go bask, it has the only UVB option, so then it goes chills right underneath the UVB. But it's it goes to investigate. All right, is this light going to come on here? Because I have that light set on another a half. It shines on half of a bigger cork tube in his cage. So he'll either sit on one end of that cork tube, or he has the whole other end where it's a higher up option for the UVB. So just seeing him use them and look around for it and investigate it when it's not on lets you know that he uses it for something. What I don't know, but it's the same thing with my lizards. I was talking about it on the Flippin' 10 podcast, how I noticed a lot of the lizards in my local area using certain basking spots at certain times of day repeatedly. So I figured, if they're in tune to their area, using certain areas at, a certain time of day, they're that tuned into the cycle. They know that the sun's going to be hitting this spot or this log at this time. So that's where I need to be. I tried switching up my timers and having my basking spots come on for different period, chunks of hours, 3 hours and then it would be turned off for 2 hours, and then to be back on for 2.5 hours, and then it would be off for 3 hours, and then to be back on for another 2 hours right before the end of the day. And it was like you would see them figure that out and then get their schedule down to where like, all right, I'm gonna go hurry up and bask really quick because I know as soon as that's off, I'm gonna be cruising around the cage when it's a little bit cooler, and
Yeah.
then waiting for it to come back on again. And I've caught my yellow tree monitor like coming to the log. It like got comfy on the log, and I was like, "Your basking light's not even on. What the hell?" Clink, and I wasn't paying attention to the timer, and the timer clicked, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like,
That's so
was
crazy.
that just a coincidence, or were you really just getting cozy, knowing that the thing's really about to flip on right now? So I think there's just once an animal is in a certain area where it feels safe and it calls that home, it tunes into its surroundings so much more than we give it credit to. Same thing with that black racer incident, being in the same spot 3 times at the exact same time of day.
Yeah.
It's like these things will get a safe area and know where a sun point's going to be, or a prey item may have a repeated path. Like, I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that we don't acknowledge, that how intelligent these animals are to their surroundings. Once
Yeah.
you give them the option,
Yeah.
And on the lighting part that you were talking about, how you do like different lights at different times. This is on. I think I talked about this on our last episode, which isn't out yet. But I have my male Brettles in Sriracha's old 4x2, and the heat light. It's on like a house dimmer switch almost, because it's too intense of a heat light, so I dim it down.
Yeah.
I don't know if the dimmers malfunctions or what, but like some days the heat light comes on and some days it doesn't. And I notice on the days that the heat light doesn't come on, he's like 10 times more active in the cage. He's cruising, he's out doing his thing, he's up watching, he's looking through the doors, seeing if I'm going to feed him. And then the days that it's on, he's curled up on under the light on the shelf and just, soaking it in. And it's just, if that light didn't, improperly work, so to speak, I would have never, that would have been a behavior I would have never seen, because the light would have just been on 12 hours a day and off 12 hours a day, But on those days he's off, dude, he is cruising. It's insane.
Yeah, I hear people talk about it too. I think it's good to switch it up and turn your lights off some days. It's okay to have your lights off for a day or two, or half a day, or turn them on for a couple hours. I mean, giving them that little bit of switch up is going to ignite, some behavior in them and make them curious and make some movement happen. And it happens in the wild. There's not every day is going to be the same temperature. And there's days where it's super cloudy and overcast. So giving them that option where it's not, full sun all day, it's good for them. And like you said, where your light doesn't work, now that thing was probably like, hey, what the hell? The nighttime's over, but it's still dark out. I'm gonna come out and investigate. There should be food moving around still. Like, what the fuck? Oh, this guy's still in here right now. Oh, there's definitely food. What the hell? Like,
Man.
It just sparks that little bit of fire in their brain.
Yeah, it's super cool to see.
Yeah.
And I know me and Jack are kind of talking that like it'd be cool if you could set up a heat lamp like that, to where like some days it just doesn't come on, and some days it comes on for a few hours, and other days it might be on for 10 or 12 hours, or have it come on one day at 89 degrees and the next day it comes on but it's only at 86 or something.
Yeah.
To kind of switch it up and give them that gradient,
Which that's kind of how I've been able to monitor the snake room I'm in now, because it's basically like based off of ambient with just supplemental heat or supplemented AC. So there's never a consistent day that it's, or like 2 or 3 consistent days in a row where it's the exact same temperature at the exact same. It's it's all in a ballpark, and it all has the same gradual pattern of heating up to a certain area between like 84 to 87 at like usually the hottest in the midsummer. Sometimes it's got, when I leave the doors open to the sunroom, it'll get like 88 in here, but that's never for like more than hour, 2, 3 hours, and then it starts to cool back down. So it's like giving these animals the fluctuation and the temperature drops, and not having them stuck at a high temperature for a super long time, or a cold temperature for a super long time. And making them move around to try to either get away from a certain temperature. It's like, that's all good for them. It's giving their body something to do. It's they don't sit around in a stagnant area their whole life. They go through some rugged shit out in the wild. Like,
Yeah, man, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I just think that we don't experiment enough or give enough options, whether that's temperature or caging wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like that's been a big part of like my current success with the cat geckos is like this room that they're in now. It's right now it's 75 degrees in here and the humidity is almost 80%. But in 3 or 4 hours, it's going to be 70 to 72, and I'm going to turn the humidifier up, and the humidity is going to fucking spike like crazy tonight, and I'm going to spray them down also. So like they get, I don't know, man. It's just like we're obviously never going to be able to replicate the wild. It's just not going to happen. But we can try our best and try to get it as close as possible to try to get those cool behaviors that we're all kind of searching for. And it's got to benefit the animal. It can't hurt.
No, as long as you're not doing something that's like crazy extremes, and like I think it's all about a time period, like
Yeah.
an animal can be at an extreme temperature, low or high, for a little period of time, and as long as it's not flashed, like
right,
you went from 60 degrees to 110 in the matter of a minute, and then now I'm going to throw you back down to fucking 60 degrees. Yeah, your fucking animal's probably going to die. Like,
right,
I'm talking about within parameters.
Yeah.
Like the lowest my room ever gets in the snake room, I think the lowest it got in here was like 65, and the hottest it's got in here was like maybe 92. So
yeah,
I've never been at a crazily boiling point. But if you're going to tell me a snake's never been over 92 degrees in the wild and it's never been below 65, you're smoking better crack than me. And if you think it can't survive at those temperatures for a couple hours before it gradually hits back to the opposite, yeah, you must not know how nature works.
Yeah.
You must not get out of your house very much.
Yeah, you must not go outside because
Yeah,
that's kind of what drives the natural cycle of these things, is hitting those different extremes in temperatures and having that fluctuation at different times and seasons. So I think it's all beneficial. I haven't seen any, I mean, knock on wood, but throughout keeping ambient the last 3 years between my snake room and my lizard room, I haven't seen any negative health effects. I mean, my animals' patterns of movement and, like moving around at night, doing their thing during the day for the diurnal stuff, poops. I mean, everyone drinks their waters. I can't tell you one negative thing that I've seen. So if I was seeing negative things, I wouldn't be doing it. I'm always open to change my thing to do better for the animal. But when something's working, I'm going to try to dial it in best I can. Best believe that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's too, like, I feel like people tend to just focus on these hot spots because that's like, as we were talking about before, like what the care guide says is like, you need this hot spot of 90 or whatever it needs to be. But people don't talk about like what it needs to get to at night for them to feel like they're actually in the wild, or, what the cool side needs to be. People just don't talk about that side of things, and it's just the focus is always on the heat versus the cold side of it, which is why I always think that like these conversations on like ruminating animals are really interesting, because it's just not something that people talk about very much, and honestly it's probably harder to achieve colder temperatures than it is warmer temperatures most of the time. So people just they focus in on that hot part, but I think these animals are much better suited to deal with cooler, I won't say cold, but cooler temperatures than they are hot temperatures. So
that's 100% for sure. I've personally noticed that.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that kind of correlates with a question Brenden asked would be like between the something I've noticed between the snakes and the monitors, and a similarity or something I've noticed about them would be people get wrapped up in the whole this is something you just said that kind of clicked it back into my head, was the whole hotspot thing for snakes. Is you have either this one little ceramic panel or a ceramic heat emitter, or you have belly heat. And in all reality, that's only going to be heating up a portion of that snake.
Yeah.
Unless you have a heat panel that's bigger than the whole circumference of your snake while it's wrapped up, and that thing's at a close enough distance to where it's really heating up the core of your snake, you're never actually heating up your whole snake with a hot spot, which is a whole nother reason why I love the ambient so much. Because when my room does get up to the 85, 86 degrees, that whole snake's body is 85, 86 degrees. Not just its tail, not half of its gut, not just its head. It's actually able to get its whole body up to that temperature, which I think helps. Like, I'm not giving them the 85 to 86 degree hotspot for more than a couple hours out of the day. And some people may think that's crazy, but the fact that their whole body is heating up to that temperature, I feel like it has a completely massive different effect on them than it would be them trying to sit on a hot spot for 8, 9, 10 hours out of a day, slowly adjusting and moving their coils. And, oh, let me heat this spot up. Oh, let me heat this spot up. Oh, let me heat this spot up. When they get it all done in 2 to 3 hours and then go about their business.
Yep.
So I feel like people get wrapped up in that mindset when they're thinking about snakes, when in the monitor world, you have no option. You can't just heat up your tail lizard or your lizard's tail. You have to heat up your lizard's whole body. And a lot of people can't grasp that thought in the lizard world, but you have to heat your lizard's whole body. You got to make a basking area that is just as long as your lizard, because it'll sit there and bask in sections. And that's when you get burns. And that's when you have your lizard basking for too many hours out of the day. And all kinds of issues can happen from that. So I think providing the right heat spot for your animal, or heating it up in a safe manner so its whole body is heating up, that is what you're looking for. That's what you're going for. Like you said, everyone's got that care guide mindset that you just think, oh, hotspot. Oh, I need a heat pad. Oh, I need heat tape. It's like, what the fuck was the goal of this? It was to get the whole body's animal up to a certain temperature. But we just get this fucking one direction, 90-degree angle mindset of fucking this, that, and we're done. And nothing ever expands or grows or evolves. And I don't know. I just think people really need to get beyond the terrarium.
Let's go. I think too, like thinking about the types of heat that you are providing too, like however you're providing heat, like not all heat is the same, you know, like you got radiant heat panels, but they're only providing a certain type of infrared heat. And like a basking bulb or something like that actually provides like a full spectrum heat wave that it can actually heat, you know, the inside of your animal. It's like,
like the inner thermal layers of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're in your house, there's a different level of being hot because your heat's on too high than if you're in the sun and you're overheating. You know, it's like it's a very different feeling. Like you're in the sun, you're feeling it like throughout your entire body, versus in your home, you're just like, oh God, I gotta take the sweatshirt off or whatever, and then I'll be okay.
Exactly.
So thinking about like the way that you're heating, not that ceramic heat emitters or whatever are bad, but like just thinking about, you know, how you're providing heat to your animals, and depending on the animal, if it needs that. Because like, I'm sure with the monitors, you gotta use basking bulbs, right? Like there's no...
I don't understand how anyone can make an argument against it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lizard's whole purpose is to heat it up off of, you know, the spectrum of the rays that the sun gives off.
Yeah.
And that's what its whole pattern, scalation, body is designed to do, is to absorb the rays of sun that the suns give off. So the fact that you're going to tell me you can provide anywhere near that with a ceramic heat source or any other kind of heat source that's not from a light bulb or some sort of, you know, halogen, incandescent bulb, something like that, you're just blind to yourself at that point.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. You're not using the heat tape on your monitors, right?
No, and that's another thing is I like to pair up and couple my basking areas
Yeah.
with a mix of that, like a mix of a halogen and incandescent bulb, because they kind of they'll give off different spectrums of lighting. So I noticed I feel like my monitors react to having a basking area with a couple different lights. Like you could,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I don't want to say it as like, oh, it's an opinion way, but it's like you just kind of you can see them use it in a quicker manner. Like they're going up, heating up, and then going about their day. They're not just going up there and laying there for hours on end. Like it almost like gives like it fulfills the purpose of basking for them better almost. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain it.
No, I do the same with Kevin. I've got a halogen and then an incandescent, and the two have very different ways of giving heat. And under the halogen, you can feel like it, like directly underneath that thing, it's way hotter. But the incandescent's like a more broad,
Broad, like a par 38
yeah,
wavelength.
yeah, exactly. So it's more broad. So it just gives variability of what he wants,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But speaking of lighting, we should talk about your builds, I think, and some of the enclosures that you've got. I know, Brennan, you've got some questions written down, so I don't want to overdo any of those. If you've got one on the terrariums or anything you want to ask.
Yeah, it was actually kind of a perfectly, like, that was a perfect little transition. I was about to do the same thing, so it kind of
Nice.
worked out.
Still your thunder.
I guess to start out, for people who don't know, I guess just talk a little bit about like your progression on how like your first monitor cage you built to like what you're doing now, and what has changed in between. Because I feel like like I said, I keep saying it, but we've gotten lucky to kind of see your whole progression in the group chat. So other people need to know about this stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I could grab those pictures to send them to your email, but like I said, they're just lost in the freaking array of my album. But I started out, doing what I saw on Instagram, which was like people using PVC and bigger exoterras for the smaller ones and stuff. And I just noticed that it wasn't working for these lizards, because to have an exoterra or a PVC enclosure set up, normally you have all your items set in. And if you need to clean anything or clean a water bowl, you obviously got to take it out. And with these monitors, like I mentioned before, as soon as you go into their environment and disrupt something, you're setting off red flags and you're initiating a fight or flight response. And you're only going back every day that you do that. So if you've ever had a baby lizard, it shits in its water 5 times a day. And it does it right after you just cleaned it. So it's never an easy or an enjoyable experience for you or the lizard. And not only do you get sick of it, but the lizard just is always stressed out. So I was trying to just figure out a way of how can I make a decked out enclosure to where I'm not going in and disturbing anything. It's just how it is, and I'm able to maintenance it without going in and taking everything out. And the way I figured that out was, learning from Uncle Mike Stefani, just watching and seeing how he does his Mertens and his baby Asian water monitors and his water bottom tub enclosures. And we ended up doing a podcast a little over, like, I think it was almost like 2 years ago now, and just picking his brain and talking about his experiences and talking about the similarities between Jobiensis and Mertens and their behaviors and their body styles and the niche of habitat that they occupy, and just all that together, it just really set the light bulb off into my head that, I need to try this method with these baby peach throats, because it sounds like they're ticking all the same boxes that these lizards are ticking, and every issue that I'm having could be solved just by doing these water bottoms. So took a couple tips from Uncle Mike, made the water bottom enclosures, which is a concrete tub, set up on a stand with a wooden frame built on top of it. And you have a drain drilled into the bottom, a 3-inch shower drain, which is just simply connected to a PVC chute at the bottom, hooked up to some flat hose. And that runs out into my backyard. And basically, you just flip a switch on the outside, your water drains, you open your door up, take your water hose or whatever it is that you have as a water supply, squirt all the poop out, squirt out any, debris or whatever, any leftover food, and fill the thing back up. And obviously it's not just a abyss of a tub at the bottom. It's a simulated, little river system at the bottom with logs and floating greenery. So there's something for them to grab onto and everything. But it basically allows you to never go in and disrupt the animal's enclosure. And by doing that, that lizard that you're showing right now on the screen used to be my flightiest peach throat. I couldn't even come near the cage without this thing banging its head off the glass or going down into a little tunnel that it's had. And since putting it in the water system, you can see she's got no fear of me. Half the time, she'll jump at the door when she sees me in the room, expecting me to open the door and either let her crawl out on my arm because she loves to just get her quail or her snack and eat it right on my shoulder and then wipe her freaking face off on my neck or something because she loves to do that. So just by doing that and not disrupting her enclosure and, gaining her trust by her knowing that everything's going to be the same daily routine and I'm not going to touch her, that lizard's, it's a whole different lizard. It's night and day difference. So that method really took my keeping with these things to a completely different level. And then from there, I've just been able to expand on what I didn't like about them, what would be better for them after this juvenile stage, once they're kind of hitting the sub-adult stage, and just realizing that these things need a huge water feature as much as they need a huge land feature, and that they need more height than they need width. It seems like they need as much width as they need height, but these things are arboreal as it comes. So just realizing that they take a lot of space, and my builds have just gotten bigger and bigger as the years have gone on. The last build that I did for Natiri, who's about to be a sub-adult, little over 2-year-old male, is a 4x4 by 6.5 tall. And now that it's all constructed and the water feature and everything's in, I'm like, all right, well, this thing needed to be 6x4 by 6.5. Like, it's never big enough. So I think just the progression of making them 8x8x8 is going to be my end goal on casters and made out of 4x4 frame with a nice big pond that's just elevated enough to run some piping out the bottom. All my newer builds that I'm doing now, all the piping and the drainage is all accessible from the outside, so I don't have to worry about disrupting the enclosure, obviously. So I can do a fitted water feature that's concreted in with stucco and the foam and covered in dry lock, so everything looks natural and it's long lasting, and I can spray it, and if it gets pooped on I can wash it. And basically just trying to go zoo enclosure quality to where these things are going to last longer and be able to be used for multiple rounds of animals and stuff. So
yeah. And that's what we love, is the zoo enclosure type stuff, man. We were talking about that in the last episode. Can we really quick just run down like how you built this thing that we're looking at now, like what the materials are, and I don't know if you have like a general idea of price and that kind of thing.
So pricing would definitely vary on what you end up using and how you can source your material, but it's the largest concrete mixing tub that you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot. Just a large black concrete mixing tub. They're made to hold a lot of weight. They're super sturdy. They don't bend. A lot of people have asked me about using the black tubs, and they're not meant to hold water like this. They flex a lot, and once you put the weight of the frame around the lip plus the water on the inside, they'll crack or they'll bow. So with these, they're just sturdy enough to hold a wooden base on top. And all I did basically was take 2x3 pieces of wood and build my frame on top. There's a 3-foot version frame on that one that's 3 foot tall on top of the tub. And then I have another 2-foot version, which I've noticed the 3-foot version is a lot better because it gives them that height over you, depending on where you have it set up on a stand or not.
Mm-hmm.
And other than some OBS covered in a bunch of coats of dry lock to seal it all off and give it protection, there's just some plastic lattice on the walls to give it some extra contact point, because I noticed if you just do dry lock on the walls, it can climb the walls, but it will file its down so low that this was one issue I ran into where it rubbed the paws of my monitor raw. So I had to take it out of the enclosure for 2 weeks and was putting ointment on its hands and blue coat on its hands every couple days just to let that heal. And while I did that, I went in and added 2 layers of lattice, a layer of lattice that's attached flush to the wall, and then a layer of lattice that hangs off just a couple inches away from the wall. So it gives it nails contact point, and it's not actually rubbing its bare paws 24/7 up against dry lock. And other than that, just like I said, with the giving it the option to have like a contact point, you notice anywhere it runs around that cage, its tail or its back legs or something is able to touch a different part of a log or something, just giving it that security so it knows it can run around freely. And if it's about to fall or if it needs to jump or if it, it loses balance, it can grab onto something or there's something else for it to bail out to. So just completely filling it from side to side, top to bottom is major. There's really nothing super special. I mean, all the materials are basic stuff you can get at your hardware store. Some 2x3, like I said, some OBS, some black coated wire that I ordered off the internet. It's really easy to just order a 200-foot roll of that stuff because you're going to use it multiple times. So just go ahead and bite the bullet, get a 200-foot roll of that black coated wire. And yeah, I use that for all my doors and my tops just because I'm in Florida, so I don't have to really worry too much about humidity. I like the ventilation option of having the screen door and the screen top, and it's just a good viewing for me and lets me have easier access to misting all the cages down. I'll go in there with my hose and just freaking blow it right through the door some of the times when I'm rushing. But yeah, man, they look pretty elaborate, but anyone could build this. It's all easy material and all obtainable stuff. I mean, like I said, I couldn't give you an exact price point, but I would say under $500.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to source all of your wood and stuff from, pet suppliers and stuff like that, you might be over $500. For me, I was able to go out and source a lot of my wood, and I get a lot of my greenery from Hobby Lobby on their 40 and 50% off sales. People laugh at me, but I'll literally go in and spend $150 to $200 on those days. And it sounds crazy, but the amount of, fake bushes and fake plants you can get. I still got stuff in my garage from the last time I went, and that was like a year ago. But
what kind of fake plants are you looking for when you go in there? Like, is there like ferns and stuff? Or
yeah, I'll usually get, like you can see in that video, I'll get like the fake ferns, the bigger fake bushes that are like they're still kind of like a fernier bush, but just stuff that looks more natural, that's going to create good cover, not only cover for the animal to like walk underneath, but cover from light. So something that has like good fan petals and stuff like that is usually what I go for. And stuff that, like, I know if the monitor is going to poop on it, it's easy to kind of clean it off. Nothing too intricate and viney and all this crap all kind of interweaving and stuff,
Gotcha.
Nice, man.
Yeah, these enclosures are sick, and I think it's like you said, it's not something that you can go buy, and it's much better suited. It's like designed specifically for this animal in mind, versus like a Exoterra that you could probably set up appropriately for something of this size, but it wouldn't work as well.
Yeah, just having the access to be able to like squirt it out and drain it from the bottom and never have to go in there and do anything is it's such a game changer.
Yeah. This thing's great.
And also, if you ever do need to change something, you can go in there and change it. You buy an Exoterra and you got to change something. Good luck, guy. It's a glass box. There's not much you can change.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just like I was saying when I first put it in there and I noticed it was rubbing its feet raw, I was able to go in there and make all the adjustments I need and add more shit, and we were good to go.
So I'm curious because I know you're in Florida. Have you ever considered outdoor caging?
Yeah, so for me it would basically just be it's really just been the money factor of investing in. If I were to do it, I'd want to do like all aluminum framing with, quarter-inch squared metal coated all the way around. And I would want to do it with like an actual a cage inside of a walk-in cage, like a walk-in room, kind of like an aviary style where you have like your walk-in and then you're inside of a cage. So basically nothing could even get to it or around it. And if it were to ever find a way out of the cage, it would still be inside of another cage, just because the one time I did try to put a monitor out in Florida, I thought I had everything good to go and I thought it was animal proof, and the lizard couldn't get out and no animals could get their whole body in there, but there was still enough gap in the fence for a raccoon to stick its arm into the cage. And that was what caused Blaze the initial belly wound, like little over 2 years ago when I tried that out. So I think for me, it would just be, creating a real barrier that I know I'd be comfortable going to bed at night and not having to worry about, because it did benefit her the couple months that she was out there. I noticed an insane color vibrance change in her.
Oh, wow.
Just seeing her, basking out in natural sunlight on a big old tree log, like literally a freaking chopped down tree that I put in there, was just the coolest freaking thing to see. And I don't know, man. Just seeing a lizard prowl around in natural daylight in a 10 by 10 enclosure is just fucking something you can't explain. So I would definitely love to do it. Like I said, I would just probably need like 10 grand to do it right. And I don't got that kind of play money right now.
Hopefully one day though, right?
Oh, 100%, man. 100%. Ideally, I would like to have a monitor shed or a monitor room and have access from each cage to have an access, like just an outside section, like a little tunnel out of a window or out of the back of the building, to where they have a caged off section outside. So I wouldn't have to build like a whole fucking terrarium for everybody. I could like build a whole cage on the back side of the building and then have individual cages out of the back side of each enclosure. So it would give me that double security and still let them go outside. But that's, like I said, that's a fucking money pit right there.
Yeah, it reminds me too of me and Jack were talking before about, like, I had this idea for carpets to do like a central enclosure, like floor to ceiling enclosure with like PVC pipes going to each cage.
Yeah, dude, I heard you talking about that on the freaking first
opening and closing each one, so you can allow a snake in for a week, put them back, allow another one in, and then you get, that animal gets the smells of the other one and all those behaviors and stuff that come with that. I think that'd be it'd be even better to do it an outdoor enclosure, because not only are they getting the animal scent, but they're getting everything else that's outside.
Brandon Wheeler, the Morelia house.
Yeah.
He kind of does that with his scrub pythons. He has he has 4 of them connected like that, but they're all stacked on top of each other. But I think it is 4 animals that he lets. It's either 4 or a pair of scrubs that he lets access all 4 of those cages. And he says he'll do that sometimes, where he'll kind of shut one off on one side or whatever. But I think that's how he's gotten some success with those animals. So pretty cool option that people need to try out and experiment with.
Yeah, you just got to be able to, allow yourself to experiment with things and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah,
that's that's part of the fun of doing this is experimenting and figuring your shit out.
Yeah, because like even those, I had 3 of those setups set up right next to each other, and all 3 of them are water bottoms at one point. But I noticed 2 of them were just kind of getting sick of it, and I could just tell that their attitudes and their behaviors were just getting really antsy.
Mm-hmm.
So I took them both out, and I basically just redecorated the enclosures, and I put 8 inches of substrate in them, and kind of just redecorated the wood around to where it's situated better to where I could have a water tub at the front end. And dude, those lizards love those setups, like it's a whole new setup, but it's the exact same amount of space, just reconfigured. And they got a
Yeah.
soil bottom now, and now both of them tunnel. One of them tunnels underneath. It has like a Y tunnel where it goes
Mm-hmm.
right next to its freaking water tub underneath this little slab, or it goes right underneath the water tub. And the other one has one that goes right underneath the slab underneath there in its cage. So it's like they both figured out now that they like those 2 like tunneling, and they come out at almost the exact same time when their lights come on every day. So being able to slowly mature to that, having that substrate option after them gaining my trust and everything with the water bottom, basically took away the thought in their mind that, oh, I could just fucking hide down in this tunnel for 4 days and I don't got to worry about this guy. So that's kind of helped graduate from, giving them that option without having to take the steps back of, oh, I only see this lizard once a week, and it doesn't tongue feed from me, and I don't know if it eats or not, but its food's gone. So
Yeah.
And that's
that's
just
the whole
individual
patience thing.
personalities.
What was that?
I said it just like goes back to the individual personalities of each animal. It's the same species, but
Yep.
each individual can be completely different. So
Yeah.
you gotta watch that and tune into that and kind of cater. They're in, like you said, they're in the same footprint cage, but they're set up completely different on the bottom.
Yeah, and you're seeing a different reaction. Like
Yeah.
a couple, like 4 of mine, they more rather prefer sleeping up high in a cork tube,
Mm-hmm.
or like kind of just like wedged up in their, like in a corner of their enclosure up high on a branch, to where they're feeling like up high, secured, nooked away somewhere, rather than being in the water or being in a tunnel. So it's all individual preference for them. But I've noticed that a lot of them will just much rather find a nice little hollow up high arboreally, and that's where they're going to call it home for the night, even when they have the option tunnel and go on the ground. So
It's so cool, man.
that's been a cool observation to notice as well.
Yeah, I bet.
So you went from these water bottoms. I guess that was like your first big set of cage builds. I guess you had Blaze's original cage that you first built.
Yeah.
That was like what, 7 foot long, and like
Blaze originally came with a 7 foot by 3 foot by 4 foot, because she was a subadult when I got her, and from there she went to 6 foot long by 7 foot tall by 3 foot wide, which was great and dandy. But she was never really a fight or flight lizard with me. So, for me to take her water tub out, I just always had it situated by the door. That was never an issue for her.
Yeah.
And, mainly with her, I just had to gain her trust over the first couple months, but she was always more than willing to come out and see what was going on and what I was up to, and if I had food or if I was just going to mess with her. So it was cool that she was just as willing to step out of her box when I first got her, because I was definitely wary of her at first. I mean, I was like, this lizard could rip my ear or my finger off at any second. And my buddy at one point had to come over. He's like, dude, you cannot act nervous around this lizard. As soon as you act nervous, it's going to take advantage of you, and it's going to know it scares you, and it's going to know all I got to do is hiss or puff up. And I was like, all right, cool. And once I realized that and started being confident with my movements and not being like mean or aggressive, but just being swift and confident and one swift, good motion, and being like in charge with everything I was doing, like that freaking game changed my relationship with that lizard. And that thing is like a scaly puppy for me now. I go in and I can tickle her chin, and some days when she's in a good mood, I unzip the tent and she just crawls right on in. I'll be like, all right, I'm ready to come out, and there's no food needed, and she just walks right out onto my shoulder and arm. So it's definitely paid off.
So what made you switch from that style cage that you had before, which was just like a wood and screen enclosure, to the grow tent?
So I was wanting to give her a lot more space, and I was just wanting to try out some new stuff. I saw a lot of the people in, the UK and overseas trying out grow tents, and other people here in the United States trying them out, but no one was really trying them out in a way that I was visualizing it in my head. So I just wanted to give it a go and see if they were suitable for peach throats, because I heard a lot of people saying that bigger monitors would just tear right through them. And there was a guy in South Florida who had a pair of some croc monitors in one, and I messaged him one day and I was like, "Yo, your crocs aren't ripping through that?" And he was like, "No, they don't really mess with it because I got a lot of climbing options in here, and they have, once they kind of realize that they slide down the side, they really kind of stop." So I was like, "All right, well, if they're not busting right through it, my Joe Biensis is definitely not going to bust right through it." So I got one, set it up, and put as many climbing options as I could in there for it, and elevated cork tubes like you can see in that one picture you got on the screen, and just tried tuning it up throughout the first 2 weeks, noticing what she was doing and where she was trying to go and what she wanted. And after about a month of getting the cage dialed in, I I didn't notice any issues. Like, it was great for holding humidity. I bought all the intake fans for it and everything, like as if I were to be setting it up as like a natural, an indoor grow tent. And it's such a good system for controlling your environment. Like, I love it for that aspect, because between they have a couple options for fans you can get where it has built-in thermostats, so you can set your fan to come on like at certain temperatures for a
Nice.
certain amount of time at a certain level and all that. So I love it for that option. Um, the only thing my complaint would be about it would just be like the ceiling of it and the framing. It,
Mhm.
it, it for monitors and bigger lizards, it could definitely use like a wooden frame. Like, it would almost be nice to get the tent, build yourself a wooden frame out of like some 2x3s or something. Nothing too big. I feel like 2x4s would just be too heavy for, like, just too big on the inside.
Yeah.
And you could build a nice frame out of wood and just put enough supports in there to where you could build off of that and build features off of that and set it up basically how I have this one. And they would basically be like bulletproof for medium sized and smaller monitors, because that temperature and humidity control, and be being able to just like walk into it when you need to, like,
Yeah.
it's so nice. Like, they're super accessible. Like, I get in that thing all the freaking time if I have to adjust anything. Like, I love it for so many aspects. The only negative part is like lately, blades has started to kind of tear into the inner lining a little bit. So I feel like for adult medium lizards and like larger lizards, it's not good for long term. But for like a smaller medium sized lizard and a smaller lizard, they'd be freaking great. Or something that's not going to be climbing up the damn walls the whole time.
Yeah.
But I
What
mean, yeah, for controlling the environment, they're freaking awesome.
what kind of modifications did you have to do to make it work? I know we said the fan, but like
Yeah, I did
outside
the
of that,
fan, and then I cut a screen door in it for myself personally, just to have a viewing point into it, and it needed more air circulation, in my opinion.
okay.
Um, there's like holes where you could see in the back. There's like holes where there's supposed to be like ventilation hoses you could hook up to it from different points and stuff, or you can connect a couple tents together. It comes with a bunch of options already built into the tent, so a lot of the holes and access points I zip tied up and just tied up so that the lizard can't crawl out of it.
Hmm.
And other than that, they're basically made to go. Like, I mean, all you got to do is get your ventilation right, and they're set up. Like all it is a frame and a cover, and you put your light. There's only a couple options to put your lights. So I would say figuring out a way to get a better ceiling in there would be awesome, to where you can mount your lights a little bit better, because you can see mine are kind of, you got to just zip tie them to the crossbars and the support bars that run across the top, which it works, but obviously a better option would be nicer. So
yeah, I gotcha. What kind of substrate are you using in there?
that one, it's like, I want to say it's probably like 8 inches or 7 inches deep right now. It's a mix of like some sand and some soil that I collected from down by the river. And then on top of that, it's cocoa chip, and then mixed with a bunch of leaf litter of just leaves from around the house. And we got a bunch of bamboo. So I always collect the bamboo when it's dying and falling down, or when I got to trim it. So just a mix of sand, topsoil, and cocoa chip and leaf litter.
Gotcha. Do you have any like cleanup glue or anything?
There's a shit ton of. Well, I did put a decent amount of isopods in there, but as big as Blaze is, she forages for little insects.
Really?
So I don't know if how many. I'd imagine there's got to be still some in there. It's a 5x5 floor plan, so. And it's got 7 inches of substrate, so I don't go through there with tweezers and count them or anything, but I'd imagine there's got to be some in there. I know there's a shit ton of springtails and stuff in there, and all the little critters and stuff that was in the dirt that I collected by the river. So there's little microorganisms and shit in there, but she'll go after any little bugs. So
wait, you mean to say you didn't completely sterilize your dirt before you put it in there?
So, the dirt that I got is probably just as sterile as what you'd get from buying, your mixture from the pet store and then adding your isopods and your springtails. Luckily, my buddy's got some private river property. So I always preach that to people. If you can find, clean private property where there's nothing getting sprayed or there's no runoff, you don't have to worry about anything. If you're in a heavy area, or if you're in an area where it's like heavy with ticks, or there might be fleas or something that you might have to worry about, you can get something called 7 Dust. And, you can treat your soil with 7 Dust. They have a spray or a powder option, and, you can mix that into the cage. You could put your soil into the cage and then add your 7 Dust to the cage. It's not going to be harmful to your animal. Other than that, as long as you're not getting from an area with runoff or being sprayed with pesticides or anything like that, you really don't have to worry about anything. I go for clean soil and clean logs. When I get logs or dirt or trees from the wild, I got a tried and true method of wire grill brush that I bought from the dollar store. I'll take that and run it all over the whole piece of wood. It gets off anything loose, bark wise, or debris wise, or anything that's kind of decaying. You can kind of scrape it off so you get to the hard part of the wood, and then I'll pressure wash it, and I'll let that shit dry out for a few weeks. And once it's I have a bunch of horse stands, so I'll keep it elevated off the ground so it's not getting dirty and shit again. Let it dry out, and I put them bitches straight in my enclosure, man. I mean, once you do that, as long as you're getting the big nasty stuff off, and you got a clean natural item, what's the difference between that and what it'd be getting in the wild? There is no difference.
Nothing.
If anything, when you do that, you're going to see your animal go down. And anytime I add new leaf litter, oh my God, I love watching the lizards go nuts, man. They go down there and tongue flick, and they'll scratch through the substrate and just like try to investigate on what's going on and what this new smell is, and what the hell's going on in here.
Yeah, just really trying to investigate it. No, that's awesome. We talked about that in the last episode too. It's just like everyone gets so hung up on trying to make sure that everything's as clean and as sterile as it can be. But I mean, I think that's almost a detriment. It's like, it's the same as like we came out of COVID and everyone was wearing masks all the time, and then everyone stopped wearing masks and everyone got the flu or whatever else because they were just like not exposed to it so much, Yeah. So being able to get exposed to other things may not be as bad as you think. So
I collect a lot of stuff from outside, man. Like I get most of my isopods come from my backyard. They just do. My geckos eat the shit out of them, so I'm not going to spend a shit ton of money on some cool looking isopods that are just going to get eaten in 3 days. Just not going to
Right.
happen. I do, however, when I collect them, I keep them separate for a little while just to make sure there's no crazy bugs in the dirt or whatever. But other than
I was
that,
gonna
man,
say you could always start your own isopod cultures for people
yeah,
out there. Like if you have access to seeing roly polies or whatever you want to call them, isopods in your backyard, collect 15 of them things, put them in a small 6-quart shoebox with some good couple inches of soil and a couple pieces of bark, and give
yep,
that thing a couple months. You're gonna have your own
yeah, man,
isopod colony. It's crazy how fast it happens. In 1 year, I went from 15 to about 3,000.
yeah,
And that is no freaking joke. It blew my mind. I didn't even believe it. But I was like, I'm the only one that's ever added isopods to this cage, and I only added a damn 15 count. So this
Yeah.
happened somehow.
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you can sell them for $300 a piece. It's
Bro,
great.
yeah, I'm not even joking. When
Insane.
I tear down this gecko enclosure, I'm gonna have to freaking start like 4 cultures out of this freaking amount of isopods in this one enclosure. It's insane. They breed like wildfire.
Yeah, they do, man. It's crazy.
Another thing about that, that's one way you'll know when you have your bioactivity right, is when you watch your leaf litter disappear and you watch your soil level grow. Because
Yeah,
my soil level in this enclosure when I started it, like it's probably been 2 years since I started the enclosure, but it was below the exoterra bar. Like it was like halfway up the site part before it hits the exoterra bar. I'm literally right up to my fucking vent with soil now. I'm like, y'all got me right on the rim. There's a couple times where I'll open the doors and isopods are like right there at the rim of the cage. I'm like, holy shit. And they cycle that leaf litter through like crazy. I've probably added leaf litter to that cage probably 8 or 9 times since I've
Yeah.
had it going. It's
hmm
freaking awesome. But that's when you know you got real bioactivity going on in your cage, and you can see the different layers of like the soil. Like I got an actual moss green layer like in the middle of my all of my stuff. Like as it's growing, it's like, all right, there's some shit going on. It's cooking. Let this man cook.
Let this man cook. And that takes, I mean, it takes a little while to get there. But if
Oh
you
yeah,
do it right,
yeah. That ain't overnight. Like I said, that's like 6 months
yeah,
to a year before you can see that soil growth and those layers and everything start to accrued.
Yeah.
that's when you're really cooking.
Cooking with
So
peanut
I was
oil.
going to ask while we were on the grow tent thing here. Have you noticed any like behavioral differences between Blaze being in the at least the cage I saw when I was there versus the grow tent?
Yeah, dude, she's I don't know, she just seems more like happy with her environment. I don't know
hmm
how like I don't she's not always at the door. Like she still wants to come out most of the
Yeah,
time, but when she was in that screen enclosure, if I came into the room and like did anything with the lizards and didn't let her out, she'd be fucking pacing the front of that enclosure and clawing at the front of the door like, why didn't you let me out? Like she
yeah,
was always ready to get out of the enclosure. With this enclosure, like I could tell she's happy with her space. Like it's confined, like it's got the walls, but she's still got a couple of viewing areas where she can see out of the enclosure and stuff. But you can tell she's happy with that space. And I don't know, she's let me bond with her. I can touch her face in that enclosure. Like you normally can't just reach into an enclosure and touch a lizard's face. Like
yeah.
How
you
about
got to
that
get
time?
them in a neutral zone sometimes to do that. And I don't know, you could just tell she enjoys being in it. So I would say just giving her that extra floor plan and giving her
hmm
something that feels like she's in a room and not wide open in that fully screen enclosure. She
Right.
definitely likes it more and just seems like a more comfortable animal.
Yeah, you can tell just like in this video, like how comfortable she is. I'm just sitting here watching this video, man. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
like she's just
Yeah.
chill, dude. That's no food, nothing. Like she's always relaxed in that thing. I could tell she's content. It's hard to explain it. I'm trying to not anthropomorphize everything with what I'm saying because it's really easy to do that. But like
Yeah,
it's so hard to put it into words. What observing something in a cage for 2 years and then you put it in a different cage and you can just tell that this animal has a peace of mind now. Like
Yeah.
it's more content. It
yeah,
I can come into the room now and say what's up to her and give her a pet and not give her food and walk out and she's going to be okay with chilling wherever she's at rather than being at the fucking door scratching like, why didn't you let me out? At least let me out for a couple minutes so I can cruise the room. Like she's cool. She's good.
that's so
Yeah, man.
awesome. I'm just like
Dude.
watching, like she's insane, man. I'm just like watching her on this other screen.
Yeah,
Just,
you were like the only one out of the group that hasn't personally
I
experienced
know.
her yet. So I can't wait for you to come down and actually get to experience her.
This summer, man, before Daytona, I'm coming.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Dude, some people have baby fever. I have monitor fever so bad. And
Oh, yeah.
this episode is not making it any better.
Yeah.
But
I
do
got
know.
baby monitor fever.
Yeah, me too. One day, man. I'm gonna get there one day. I just don't have the time or space right now.
Yeah, you will. You will.
Yeah. It's one of those things where could I go do it now? I could. Would it be smart, responsible? Absolutely not. So sometimes you just gotta hold off, man. You can't just jump at shit, especially when it comes to keeping something as intelligent and as insane as a monitor is, man.
That's
Yeah.
a lesson that everybody needs to listen to right there.
Yeah.
It won't be the same experience for you or the lizard. I can
Yeah,
tell you that much.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's far too easy to get on Morph Market and say, I've got the $600 or whatever it's going to be to buy this lizard right now,
Mhm.
and then not like be fully prepared for that thing for the rest of its life, really, which is, I'm sure, a lot of money, first of all, and then based off of what we know from you guys, a lot of time commitment. So making sure you're in the right space for that beforehand is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing you just touched on was the money aspect of the lizard. And that's the cheapest part of the whole ordeal.
Yeah.
Man.
That's another thing that people hit me up on and asking what their cheapest option for caging is after they just bought this lizard at an expo. And it makes me cringe and fucking bite my tongue. But it's
Yeah.
like, dude, that was the cheapest part of your endeavor.
Yeah.
Time to go spend at least $1,000 on a fucking proper setup and lighting for this thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to take. And people don't like to hear that shit.
Yeah.
But it's the truth. And it's one thing I've had to learn. And it's, you're never going to get your money back out of this stuff. That's why it's called a hobby.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why I've never considered myself a breeder. I've always considered myself a keeper because I could give a shit less about the breeding aspect. I just want to see the positive come out of the keeping. And dude, I personally get more out of dumping my money into these things and getting a good positive behavior or reaction out of this lizard than any sort of breeding success that I've had so far. That was my biggest message for 2023 was, you can make a goal happen and you have this great idea and grand idea about it, but it's never, snake breeding is never great and grand as it fucking is made out to be. It's you creating that many more problems for you to fucking deal with.
Yeah.
Is basically what it is. So if you would have put that money and that time and that effort into advancing your husbandry for a certain animal or a certain species, you'd be getting the long-term gratification of being able to see it enjoy its habitat and its lifestyle, like I got with Blaze going into that tent. And now I can be okay with going into the room and not, taking her out every time because I know she's content and happy with her home that she's in. Even though I'm not content and happy with it, she's going to eventually be in that 8x8x8 with a nice big water pond and everything. But at least for now, she's okay.
Yeah. It always cracks me up when I see that question of how's the cheapest way I can house something, because I mean you see it all the time in the crocodilian forums on Facebook, and it's like you just need to figure out how you can house this thing. It's not cheapest. Like, especially when these people get these Nile crocodiles and they're like, all right, how do I set this thing up cheaply? And it's like, cheaply?
Like,
that thing's gonna be 18 feet. Like, I don't.
Bathtub is only going to last you the first week.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, cheap shouldn't even be in your vocabulary at this point. Like, it's this, nothing about this is going to be cheap. So,
no. Yeah, that's what people need to get that thought out of their mind of animals and cheap.
Yeah.
That's a big reason why I like to talk about the cost of things, and we've been doing that a lot on the episodes that are yet to be released. Yeah. Especially when we went through like all my cage builds on the last one we recorded. I think, I don't know, man. People just think you can go and spend $100, $200, $300 on a setup that's going to work the entirety of an animal's life, man. And it's just not how it goes. Like, I'm over $1,000 on the monkey lizard cage, and they're 2 1-foot lizards that nobody cares about, you know? So it's like, and that's not even their forever cage. Like, that's just an upgrade. Like, I'm already planning the next one, and I just put them in there. You know, it's just like you got to keep, I don't know, man. You got to keep evolving. You got to keep
the forever evolution. But that's another thing too that people will ask me is, well, what can I put this thing in next? And it's like, I try to explain to them that I have a fucking cage for every stage of life. So whatever you're planning for and whatever you think you got going on right now, that's only going to last you for a couple more months or another year or year and a half. You need to start planning the next one. And no, you can't go from step 1 to step 7. I'm sorry. As much as that sounds fucking awesome in your head, and it sounds financially, a lot easier, you're never going to get the results doing that. You can't go put your 1-foot monitor in the 8x8x8 and expect to get, the results. So that's the whole other thing, is figuring out, what caging works for what stage of life. And now that you know that, you keep that cage, and as as you progress and get another animal in, or you say you do have success, now your babies are going to go into that for that stage of life, because it works perfect for that stage of life, and you know exactly what you need to do to gain their trust or get them to move forward, at that stage. So it's all about just learning and marking it down and recreating it and redoing the pattern in a positive way.
Yeah. We kind of talked about this a little bit on the episode we did about Kevin's cage, but like, monitors are another one that, like, being handy is a prerequisite to owning them, because you're not going to be able to, I mean, I guess with the grow tents, it's kind of a cheat code. You can buy something pre-made, but for the most part, you're going to, have to build the enclosure that they're going to be in. So I wanted to ask you, Sky, like, were you handy prior to owning these, or was it kind of a skill that you learned, or like a mix of the two?
Yeah, thankfully I've been handy my whole life, because that's the only way I've been able to pay my bills.
Yeah.
Never had the brain. So I've always been handy, but I would say this is all about having the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I've learned, is just go out, and it doesn't have to be top of the line name brand tools, but go to Harbor Freight, get you a good saw, get you a good drill, get you the good drill bit kit, get you some spare batteries, some spare chargers. Make the initial investment on some decent tools, because like Jack said, there's no getting around it. You're going to need to make modifications. You're going to need to set up fans, or do some plumbing, or do some electrical for your lighting. None of it's crazy shit. It's all basic stuff.
Yeah.
But when you're new and you've never done it before, this guy, you send videos to your friends, shocking yourself and almost blowing the damn reptile cage up while you're setting it up, just for them to go, "Hey, dumbass, you should probably unplug it while you're doing all that." So none of it's crazy. It's all just learning. You can watch YouTubes on all of it. and it's all just practicing and, trying it. That's all I've had to do is try it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm always about, I can't read something and learn. I got to have someone show me hands on, or I got to see it done, and I got to do it myself and fail and then realize, okay, all right, do it again, but don't do that part, because that's how you get shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, getting the few tools that you'll need is going to take you so far in this game.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Going to allow you to be you can be stupid. As long as you got some tools in YouTube, you're going to be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's the same with like the background builds and stuff. Like people, especially like with the background builds I'm doing now, where like I'm posting like step-by-step process. I have people message me and like want like a full list of all the equipment that you need to do this thing. And then you tell them, and you tell them prices stuff, and it ends up being hundreds of dollars, and they kind of get, weary of it. But it's like I've built all this equipment over the past like 2 years. Like you start building something, you say, oh, I need this kind of bit for this. I'm gonna go buy that. And once you buy it, you have it for the next time you need it. You build your toolkit of whatever you're doing, and yeah, it's an investment. It costs money, but once you have that, no one can take that away from you. You have that for the next time. And it'll be easier the more you do. The easier it gets, the more equipment you're going to have, the better it's going to look. And it's just all progression, man. And people want to, as soon as they start out, they want to have the top of the line shit. They want to have all this extra equipment that they don't even know how to use half the time. And then their builds come out, like all of us, our first builds were shit, and mine were at least. And they just, they get discouraged on that when it's, you gotta crawl before you walk, and you gotta walk before you run, kind of deal.
Yeah.
You got to build into everything. You're building into your build. Like, like you said, the best way to do it is to just start practicing, start making some small builds, because once you start doing it, you're going to start realizing what materials and what tools work best, and go buy them, go buy that tool. Because then you're going to do your next build. And when you're doing your next build, you're going to be using that tool, and you're going to find another kink in the armor, and you're going to go fucking get the tool for that. And the fucking ball just keeps rolling. And then guess what? By the 20th build, you're going to be doing some next level shit, and you're going to have all the tools you needed to do it. And it's going to actually come out badass.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. One thing too that you mentioned, Sky, earlier when we were talking about how you came up with those the tub builds that you did, was like kind of applying things from Mertens and water monitors and taking that. But I think on a larger scale, just building in general, like none of this has a direct guide. Like you're not going to be, I mean, maybe there's some instances where you could go on YouTube and find, how Skylar built his peach throat monitor enclosure. But for the most part, you're kind of extrapolating upon other information that you've seen. And being able to do that, I think we talked about this a little bit last episode, Brenden, but like taking pieces and parts from other people's ideas and applying it to yourself, and having the cognitive ability to like recognize, oh, I could use that. And this part of I don't know, maybe like somebody building a nightstand in their bedroom or whatever, but like that drawer slide is how you're going to build like the hide or whatever, like being able to think through other things that are not applicable to reptiles and make them applicable, and being able to do that, like make your builds 10 times better, and make you the inspiration for other people doing it, because you got to try stuff out and figure out things from other things in order to make this work. Like keeping these massive lizards and crocodilians and snakes and stuff like that we do is not normal. Like it's not the bearded dragon and the leopard gecko is the status quo. The 4-foot peach monitor is not the usual that you can go to PetSmart and buy stuff. So you got to be able to figure things out and think through things logically and apply it. So
yeah, I mean, I use stuff from you guys, like on that build I just did for Natiri. It's basically done. I just don't have him in it and set up yet, just from some logistics that are going on. But I took a bunch of Brendan's dry lock and painting techniques to get my rocks to look right, because I've done the dry lock before and I've done some dry brushing, but the way Brenden does his rocks, just all of his builds, his rocks look freaking awesome. So I'm like, all right, well, what are you using to do this effect and get that effect? And I was able to make my rocks look like actual rocks. And
Yeah,
I
man.
remember Jack talking about how he did his carpet python build where he was building the rock shapes out of wire and everything, but he filled it with concrete, so it was too freaking heavy. But I was like, okay, Jack's doing the same thing as masonry people. What do masons do when they want to form something out of concrete? They get wire or rebar and they make their shape. So I had a whole bunch of spare wire laying around. I took a stapler and shaped a bunch of wire in a bunch of random shapes on the walls of this enclosure and sprayed them all in with spray foam. And the spray foam, filled in all the gaps and went to all the shapes that I needed. And then I went in and shaped it a little bit here. I got these Teflon brushes that go on to the end of a drill bit. And you kind of just go over the spray foam with that shit and it eats up just the surface and sands it up enough for you. Then after that, you hit it with some dry lock and a thin layer of some stucco and some more dry lock. And I'll be damned if you can tell the difference between that and a real rock when it's done, man. I mean,
Yeah, man,
it literally
crazy how it happens too.
It blows my freaking mind in person how much that shit looks like stone in some areas. And I mean, you tap on it and it feels like rock. It's just crazy. So between taking Jack's shaping techniques and taking Brendan's, dry lock and painting techniques and mixing in my little methods of it, I've been able to do shit that I wasn't able to do a year ago. All just been through evolution and trying stuff and taking stuff that other people are doing and putting your own twist on it. And you never know what you're going to come out with. Like the one build that I'm working on now for the yellow tree monitor, I'm using your same technique. That's why I was asking you about the acrylics today, because today I'm trying to just learn and figure out more things with the layerings of my colors to try to get. Now I want to try to figure out how to get more of a bark effect. How can I use the dry locks and the acrylics to really get those deep dark colors in the crevices, but still get the rich browns and everything, that so it looks like some real awesome bark. So now that we got the stone down, I want to try to play around and get a good bark look going down, because then once you start getting both of those techniques dialed, you can make any awesome zoo enclosure you want. You could make any feature you want. You could literally from scratch build your own trees, build your own rocks in whatever position in whatever section of the enclosure you want. And that's what it's all about, because now you're creating a whole space that you can envision in your head. Like, oh my God, I'm envisioning this chunk of the environment that this lizard lives in. Let me put this shit to life. And then while you're doing that, like in your head, you're already picturing the lizard's going to be doing this or using this section like this. And then when the day finally comes that you get it in there and it does use that section, the freaking gratification and the butterflies that you get in your stomach is freaking, you can't compare it to anything else. I mean, it's happened time and time again with these setups that I do for my lizards. And it just gives me the gratification of like, all right, all of this crazy shit going on through my head and my obsession for this is all worth something, because clearly there's your direct correlation that what you're doing is right. Because if you can envision it in working a way and then it does work that way and your animal shows you, you're doing something right.
Yeah. And that's the most rewarding feeling too, is thinking about something and then it actually like working exactly the way you wanted it to.
It's better than breeding for me, dude. That's what drives
it. It's a different feeling. It's insane.
Yeah. You feel like kind of like the master universe of the universe.
You feel like you figured out a sliver of this fucking wild ass pie that we're trying to fucking figure out,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You got all the infinity stones and you're
over here like levitating them fucking.
Yeah. I've done
that's where I'm at now. Like I feel like I have the dry lock thing kind of down at this point. So I'm taking, because I mean, I know I've mentioned it a few times on a few of these episodes, but my girlfriend's like a legit artist. So like I'm constantly picking her brain. Like she's very good at like clay sculpting and molding and stuff. So our next goal is to try to build like another big repizoo and do like a legit tree trunk in the middle, and make it look as real as possible. So like, once you get because I've been doing the dry lock stuff for, I guess it's been 2 or 3 years now. I've been kind of trying to perfect that, and I feel like I'm to a point now where it comes fairly easy to me, I guess.
Yeah.
So now that next evolution is now that I can do a decent dry lock background, I want to start working with the clay and the zoopoxy, and I'd love to get Mike on here and talk about the zoopoxy stuff, because he's doing insane stuff with that. It's more expensive, but I think it's worth the price. But I don't know, man. I mean, we all kind of want our own little slice of a zoo, so that's kind of the goal. Like, I've been kind of secretly downsizing the collection a lot these past couple of years, and the reason for that is just to put what I have in big elaborate enclosures that are fucking decked out to the gills and look legit. That's I wanted to be a breeder for the longest time. I wanted the rooms of snakes and racks, and there's nothing really wrong with that, but I get so much more enjoyment out of just seeing the behaviors of these animals now. It's just like it's second to none. So that's definitely where I'm heading in the future myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with that. I feel like we're all kind of on that wave. But
Yeah.
before I forget the thought, just kind of while we're on it, I feel like, we all, as we're building and doing different builds and stuff, I feel like we as individuals will kind of lock ourselves into these little boxes of like, oh, I'm using a dry lock and foam method. And, we get locked into, all right, I'm doing this whole setup out of dry lock and foam, when we forget that why can't we use a little bit of modeling clay? Why can't we use a little bit of zoopoxy? Why can't we incorporate all 3 or 4 different methods into this build to get all of those different effects? Because they each have their kinks and quirks and their pros and cons to each method. So why wouldn't mixing them up to get different effects, and what other effects that you don't know you could get yet because you haven't tried mixing them? So that Kono Terra guy who does those insane backgrounds, I've tried to get it out of him before. We've had some good conversations. He's always given me good responses. Asked him a couple times about what ingredients he uses, and he's literally told me it's a secret. It's like I can't give away my secrets, but I can tell you it's a lot of materials. So that just goes to show you, he's not using a one tried and true step method. It's just like everything else we're talking about with these husbandry methods and everything, mixing up and trying different stuff and making the evolution happen, and seeing what happens if you incorporate a completely different item that no one else is using, but it makes sense in your brain and you can make it happen. Why not freaking try it just to see what's going to happen? You might unlock a whole nother step into these builds that no one's even, thought of yet. So I think the mix up of, trying different stuff, that's kind of where I'm at now. I want to learn more about, like I was saying, I'm trying to learn more about my layering, different looks. I want to use some of that zoopoxy stuff. It's expensive, but if you're not using it on a whole build and you're using it in sections, maybe you can make it work. And you see people making branches and shit out of PVC and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I was just gonna bring that up.
you can there's so much stuff you can make with day-to-day items that people, it just either goes over your head, or the thought doesn't even come as a comprehensible thought to you. But you'd be surprised what a heat gun, some PVC, some sandpaper, and some paint would do. Yeah. You can make a damn branch with just those items.
Yeah.
Or even like rope, silicone, and some eco earth, man. You can make insane vines.
Vines. Yep. You can make crazy naturalistic vines doing that stuff. And doing those vines like that, man, I've seen a lot of people have, they don't have good long-term success with them. But like we were just talking about, the combination of methods. What if you did your vine like that, coated it with the silicone in your eco earth, and then you went and dipped that thing in dry lock? So now so you had all your texture of all that, and you had your vine like that, but then you went and coated it in a sealant that's not going to just tear apart or bake away and get torn up by the animal. So there's always different, or you could coat it in the zoopoxy. There's so many different things you could do that I feel like we're putting ourselves in these little boxes, and this was done like this, so I got to do it like this. Like, fucking dude, we could do whatever the fuck we want. Try anything once, try anything twice. Who knows what we're going to come up with?
Yeah, there's levels to this shit, and the only difference between the levels is what you've tried. Like, that's it.
Exactly.
Like, everything else, it's not like these people are like, I mean, that Kona Terra guy might be an actual artist. Like he's
a freaking artist, dude.
Yeah, you can tell he's next level, dude. He's probably been doing that shit his whole life.
Oh god.
But like, the only difference is he's tried it, and he's figured out other ways to do it.
Yeah, that's it.
So
I mean, he's literally collecting natural samples from where he's getting inspiration from to add to the stuff. So that's how next level this is. How it's all about how far are you willing to go with what you're doing. It's just like me and Jake were talking about it because of his locality projects. I told him a good challenge for him would be next locality project you have where you want to go collect an animal, collect that animal, and right where you collect it, collect every object that you're going to put, or whatever object that you were going to put in his enclosure, collect them all right there from that area, the substrate, the leaf litter, the branches, the twigs, everything, so that you have not only a true locality animal, you have a true locality enclosure.
Yeah.
You're going and looking at a piece of the environment and the animal.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that with everything? Why aren't we going and getting people go and get inspiration shots or background shots all the time? I'm not saying go out and collect the environment, but you can always take a couple items from a certain area, come back, and if they need to be cleaned up a little bit, you can soak some stones and some rocks and some dishwater and some Dawn dish soap and some water, and then let them dry out after you rinse them and put them in your enclosure. I promise you it's not going to be harmful. You're already paying $50 for a half-pound bag at PetSmart, and they didn't even rinse them off for you.
Yeah.
So,
and what's the difference between that and like what you used to do as a kid? Like what you used to do as a kid is you collected a garter snake and then you grabbed a bunch of grass or like whatever from there and you set it up. The difference now is that you actually like know what it needs so you can get like the right shit. But other than that, I mean, it's the same thing.
I think it's that, and I also think it's a social stigma. I honestly think people believe they have to have every item from a pet store or an over-the-counter item. Like, just like you were saying, every pet I ever had when I was a kid or an animal that we caught, we collected items from that area or from my grandpa's backyard or something. Like, it was never a store-bought item. It was a true natural setup.
Yeah.
In the way, I don't know how the hobby got away from that. It's obviously slowly migrating back towards it, but
because that's how it used to be. That was like in the 60s, 70s. Like they didn't have like pet supplies. Like you just went out and you collected shit and you did it. And that was probably like, I mean, obviously you didn't have UVB and like the technological advances that we have now that we know are important. But like from just an enclosure design perspective, back then it was probably better than it is now.
100%.
And we like regressed because it's easier and cheaper to set it up in a breeding style setup. But now people are like, that's not as fulfilling. So,
and I think that's part of what took over was the whole breeding aspect and the availability of tubs. And I want 1,000 animals, but I can't fit 1,000 animals in 60-gallon aquariums set up on center blocks, with a fucking 2x4 over the lid so the snake doesn't come out. So it seems like that's where it evolved from the early 2000s, and now it's like you're saying, no one wants that shit anymore. I want to come into my room and see my snakes. I don't want to come in my room and see a rack and have to pull it open.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Get in the face when you're pulling the drawer out. And
I like literally like my tub, the one rack I have, which I'm not an anti-rat guy. I got racks for my babies and my juvenile snakes, but they fucking strike at me every time I open those damn tubs, or they're literally waiting for food or something. It's like it's training a reaction out of them, and it's like I don't ever fucking see them. The only time I see them is when I'm doing something with them. And I'll be straight up honest with you, I don't even enjoy the snakes that I have in tubs. So for the fact that I can say that and feel that way lets you know that it shouldn't be a responsible back thought for us to keep doing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a time and a place for it. Like you're not going to set up all your babies that you are either going to keep or sell or whatever long term in an enclosure. Like you'll set them up when they're adults in the enclosure you want them in. But like there's a point in it for it, but
Yeah.
I think having all your animals in that just isn't great.
No.
No.
There's an appropriate step for everything, and yeah, I feel like you got to just be honest with yourself at a certain point that you're not in it for what you're saying you're in it for.
Yeah.
If you have all your animals kept a certain way, because you wouldn't have them for a certain reason if you had them all in tubs. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is fine. You gotta be honest with yourself.
Just like I said, it's fine. That's totally fucking cool.
Yeah.
But don't fucking preach the other don't preach the other way. Just accept it. Like, all right, dude, I'm literally in this to be a fucking breeder and make money. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
You be about your cages. Like,
yeah.
Don't justify it. Don't justify it for
Right.
whatever reason you have to make yourself feel better to go sleep at night. It's not fucking true. Your fucking snake is not fine with that tub. It's lived before it was in that tub, or its ancestors lived in a bigger area than the house you're living in right now.
Yeah.
So it's not justifiable.
What level of like aesthetics versus function do you go for in your enclosure, Sky?
I definitely go for function first, and then whatever aesthetic I can add in after and fit, I'll stuff as much in as possible. But my basis is I structure it all off of like what needs to happen, like what needs to work, and what all the functions that need to happen. And then from there, I'll go into the aesthetic part of it and what's going to make it look nice for me and pleasing for me, and look aesthetically pleasing for what I think the animal would like. But it's mainly like, all right, this needs to be the basking portion or side of the cage. All right, I need different levels for gradients. I need to have different height options, climbing options, whatever the scenario may be. And then from there, I'll add in what may look good or be an add-on to that.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I think that's what you were asking. I don't know if that's what.
Yeah, no, that is. Yeah, we I think we talk about this a good bit though. Is just like the significant behaviors that you're looking for out of your animal, and like each animal and each species have different significant behaviors, and you've got the core ones which are like basking, eating, sleeping, things like that, and then you've got other ones that like for a monitor would be like monitoring, searching and like cruising and stuff like that. Or are there any other ones that you can think of that you try to like think about when you're designing your enclosure to make sure you have something incorporated for them?
I would say, I mean, I can dive deeper just into the basking portion of that. Okay. So like for a correct basking area, proportionately, not only does it need to be as big or as wide as your lizard to fully body heat it, but it needs to also fuck, I just had another fucking brain fart. Fuck. Sorry, I'm on like so much cold medicine right now. It's fucking ridiculous. I'm fucking one more time. What was
just like significant behaviors, the basking, like
okay, sorry, yeah. I was about to go on a fucking mean tangent with this one too, because I got a lot of heat for this one. So not only does your basking area need to be as big and wide as your lizard to where it's heating the whole body, it also needs to be the correct parameter of temperature, and preferably, a mix of different lighting options and not a ceramic heating option, because that's when it's going to correctly heat the monitor. It's trying to heat its body deep into the core. And when you're hitting those parameters with the right heat and the right size of basking area is when you see your lizard basking for short periods of time. You never want to see an animal basking for hours on end, or fucking just as soon as the light comes on, it slowly crawls to its basking area, and it's at its basking area until it comes down one time for food and a drink of water, and then it crawls back up there, and then the lights go off at the end of the day, and then you see it go to sleep. Your shit is way out of whack. You need to get a laser temp gun. You need to freaking do a little bit more research. You need to check your bulbs, because when you have your parameters right, you're going to see your animal go up, bask for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Maybe after a meal, it'll bask for 45 minutes to an hour before it's going to go chill for the rest of the day away from the heat. But they're never there for a long, consistent period of time. That animal's going to go up there, reach its peak operating temperature, go like Jack said, it's going to go monitor around, do monitor shit, forage around, explore the cage, go dip down in the water. And then maybe 30, 40 minutes later, it'll go back up there again, 15, 20 minutes, back again, and then go continue the same routine. That's when you know you're hitting your parameters right, because the monitor is able to go up there, heat up its core to its operating temperature. That's when it's, baking off its food good and actually being able to use that food and transfer it into muscle and tissue rather than just barely processing it into a fucking mushy turd that it's getting out, and somehow whatever nutrients was left in its body is going into a storage unit because the lizard isn't even moving around or exercising. So it's just all getting pushed into a storage fats freaking reserve. So not only is your monitor not moving around like it should, but it's not even digesting like it should. And it's probably not even heating up like it should because it's still laying around in its basking temperature. So basking temperatures, I will literally play with a basking spot when I do an upgrade or, a move around for like a fucking week. I'm in there with my temp gun every day at different times of the day, seeing when this thing's using it, checking the lizard's body temp, checking the basking temp, from end to end, making sure that everything's at an operating temperature that I know is going to work for this species, which for Rannus joviensis, for the first year, I operate at a 115 to a 120 basking temp for the full body length. And then once they reach a subadult to adult size, I'm 125 to 130 Fahrenheit. And that's worked like a charm for me. 15, 20 minute basking sessions, without food in their belly. And when they are full, you'll sometimes get that 45-minute basking session. And other than that, they're on the go doing something, or when they're not on the go, they'll be tucked up in a log taking a nap because they already reached operating temperature. Their food's digesting for the day. So that's what you want to see.
That's great. I mean, that was
more than
sorry. I tell you, I'll go deep on basking, bro. This shit, I've had to research this shit and play with it so much. It's not even a freaking joke for me.
Yeah. Well, it's such a different mentality from like keeping a snake, because, a snake will go up and sit on a basking spot for a really long time, but that's just because they don't move as much generally, so they're going to go up, chill, digest their large rat that they ate, and then they'll spend a couple days in their cool side, and then they'll go back up and heat up for a day or whatever. So it's a completely different mindset, and it's really interesting to hear about because it's different from anything else I keep. The turtles are the same way. The turtles will sit there and lounge like a girl on vacation for 5-6 hours.
Hot girl summer tan on.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear that you want them to be doing like the short period and then active in between. Is like height of the basking spot important? Like, are they basking up high most of the time, or do you have lower basking spots? Or
so mine's literally that's how I'll base the gradient of their basking and kind of give them options is, set it up at a higher elevated basking spot where they're getting real peak heat. And then I'll try to kind of level it down from there and give like a dappled basking as it goes down. And you'll see him notice, like Blaze, she has her main basking platform, and she has a middle platform, which there's times where I'll go and I'll be like, where the hell are you? Because I'm like looking in her main areas and like all the visual spots. And then I see her chilling in the cryptic area, and she'll just be sitting there, and there's just enough light shining through. It shines through a little crack and through the sides and on the side of the leaf. So it's like she's got the bulbs hitting her in a couple spots, but she's not full bask. So it's like giving them those different gradients and options and dappled light. They're going to use it every time for whatever suits them best at that period. Like obviously she didn't want to be fully heated up, but she was still trying to chill with a little bit of warmth. So And it's the same thing for all the other lizards. I give the same set of options. Obviously, it's not the same exact thing, but levels from the heat panel so that they can get the gradients all the way down to the floor.
Yeah. Giving them different options and stuff.
Yeah.
So do they tend to bask under the UVB a lot?
So I try to keep a UVB away from the basking area.
Mhm.
That's just like a separate UVB basking area, and then I'll couple UVB with their main basking area. And I do notice multiple times out of the day, each individual animal will bask under just the UVB versus going to the heat panel with the UVB. So yeah, all the time.
Isn't there like a whole like thought process in the monitor side that like they don't need UVB? Isn't that like a thing?
People, that's why I said some people somehow get that misconstrued in their brain that that's a thing, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people think that they don't need UVB or.
That's wild to me. To me, that's like the epitome of an animal that needs UVB.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because like the whole prey item thing that people think they can just get D3 from like
just throw the D3 powder on it and they'll be good to go.
Yeah, that's crazy to me though.
It blows my mind. I mean, they have a freaking third eye scale in their head that detects light and shadows.
Yeah,
but somehow they don't need light.
I forgot they had that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I asked the UVB question because it's crazy how similar these polychris are to the little monitors, man, because they'll use their basking spot for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. The rest of the day, they are basking under that UVB, man. They're up top, right underneath it, all day long, just chilling. They fucking love it.
I was just listening to Roy's podcast before we did this one. He was just on the colubrid corruption, and he was talking a little bit about the polychris and just like how they're cool basking, like do cool shit and act. He literally said they act like little monitors and cross with like an anole or something. It's like the work you need to do with those, dude. You could probably take those to a freaking level that like Kimberly Rock monitors are on or something. Like, I don't doubt it one bit.
Yeah, that's the goal, man. We plan to get Roy on here sometime and do a complete monkey lizard masterclass for everybody. But
y'all really need to.
They're just insane, dude. They're just the coolest lizards. I wish more people knew about them because they're too cool.
You got me intrigued for
whatever.
Sure.
Do what, Jack?
I said they're all right, man. They're whatever.
Yeah, get out of here.
Between those and the anoles that Chaz has, those Dalmatian rock lizards from Eddie, man, I'm gonna be good with some fucking awesome lizard species from you guys for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Brenden, you're we can talk about it because this will be way later, but you're gonna have one of those anoles tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah, man, he'll be here in the morning, hopefully.
That's crazy.
So stoked. So stoked. Those things are beautiful, man.
Yeah,
they're so cool, man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna end up going all lizards. It's gonna happen.
That's kind of like what I'm envisioning as well, other than the Barons, because those are like a freaking lizard to me. But yeah, dude, I'm gonna be dying to get one of those anoles. It's like nowhere near me getting one, but I'm like already like, fuck, I want one of those. And like, I know you're not too far away, but it's nowhere near you like having any monkey lizards ready to sell. But I'm just like, fuck, dude, I want one of those too. And, like,
dude, from what Roy's been telling me, man, they may do it this year, later this summer, apparently. So.
Oh, really? That'll be dope, dude.
Need to get a few eggs this year.
That would be so cool for you to get a small little group going, man.
Yeah, man.
Are yours the Peruvian ones or the other ones?
No, they're not Peruvians.
No, they're the
those are like the incubation time and like the breeding process of those is apparently so insane.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing him talk about on the pod. I couldn't remember which ones you had.
Yeah, I have the other ones. I'd like to get them eventually if Roy can breed them and produce them, and if anybody does, it'll be him. You know, I'd like to get a pair, but they're just too cool, man.
Yeah.
Bleecker City over there. You walk into those rooms, there won't even be cages. It's just like a bunch of 1-foot lizards just hanging around.
I would not be mad at that.
Not me either. It sounds like a dream to me.
For real.
Well, Brenden, you have any last questions that you had written down that you want to ask Sky? I know we're getting
No, man, it's crazy. I didn't ask many, but the whole conversation pretty much answered everything I had, which is crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
you had one on there that we didn't really touch on, was the herping, the last one.
Oh yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me find it real quick. Okay. Oh yeah. So with the Flippin' 10 podcast that you and Jake do, you know, you both are pretty avid herpers. How has herping changed your mindset on like captive keeping of the monitors and everything you got going on over there?
It just basically drives me to do more, honestly, because it's hard. I say it all the time. It's hard to make an observation in the wild and then apply something to your captive keeping and then get a positive, behavior response out of it, or you see a difference out of it and then go back on that. So just for me at this point, I'm obviously not doing nothing crazy groundbreaking out of the box, but the few things that I've applied to my keeping from, being out in the field, you can't go back on it. So it's like you said, it's an ever progression that's just keeps driving me forward of, okay, these animals are the book for me to learn to bring back to my collection. So the more you go out and observe in the wild, just like I was saying, noticing those lizards and going to the same spot multiple times at different times of the day and seeing the same individual animals, and noticing their patterns, and then trying out different light scenarios with my animals and then seeing them change their patterns. It just goes to show you that there's so much that you can learn from the wild and apply to your captive and then learn from that. So it's just giving you the tool to apply to your keeping, basically. And just even objects, even if it's not something that you're trying, husbandry wise, even if it's just decor that you're trying out, or different mosses, or, different microorganisms to improve the environment for your animal. There's always something that you can bring back from your natural experiences that you have out in the field to, be better for your keeping of your collection. I don't know. It's from simple as adding a new feature to adding a different style of husbandry or a light or anything.
Right.
Yeah. We kind of talked about that too in the first episode of just herping for ideas and thinking about how you can design a cage differently to look like a more natural, or look like something. I think we used the example of a stream bed and the edges where all the roots are. That's one of my favorite places in the wild. I just think it looks the coolest with all those roots coming out of the bank and the rocks and everything. That. But finding spots like that where you can, take a picture or just think about the way that you could do that in your own terrariums and stuff is one of the coolest things, I think.
Dude, me and Preston and Jake, we were literally talking about that the last time him and Preston were down when we took Jake to go catch that brown water snake. We were walking along the riverbed, and me and Preston literally stopped, and we were just looking at this base of this tree, but we were we were underneath the tree on the riverbank, looking up at the root system, like you're saying, on the side of the bank. And we literally just stood there for a second. We both looked at each other. And we're like, dude, could you imagine just taking that little section and putting it in an enclosure? It'd be fucking perfect.
Yeah.
And I feel like more people need to go out and get that inspiration to just go out and find a cool little section of nature and just take some mental pictures, or take some actual items if you're at the right spot. And it's, it's okay to do that, because doing those things and bringing that shit back is going to give you so many different options for observations to happen, and you never know what you're going to learn or add to your skill set. So
Yeah.
it's all about just getting out there and learning, man. You're going to learn something every time you go out.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think we should call it here. I think we're at 2 hours 20 minutes. I think that was an excellent show. Sky, really appreciate you coming on. When we started this, we kind of knew that you were going to be our first guest. It just felt right.
Fucking stoked, dude. I was so stoked when you hit me up. I was like, hell yes, can't wait.
Well, taking off our training wheels here on our first guest episode, and we figured you would be the best to do it with. So
yeah, really I'll be your guys' warm up dummy.
Hey, if anyone doesn't follow you on Instagram, where can or anywhere, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the best place to hit me up would be Hail the Scales on Instagram, or Peach Throat Passion on Instagram, or if you want to hear me and the guy Jake that we keep talking about on Flippin' 10, our podcast about, bringing what we learn about herping back to our collections, give us a listen on that. Other than that, make sure you guys follow these dudes, because Beyond the Terrarium is something that's need to be brought to the hobby for a while. So this is something that everyone should take some notes from. And even if you think we're all a bunch of goobers, we're trying to put out some good content and some good messages. So if you can put your opinions about us aside, if you think we're a bunch of goobers, and just take the good info that we're trying to put out, it would be freaking awesome, because that's all we're trying to do is help these animals and help the hobby and show everyone that it's awesome to just keep evolving. And it's evident between us and our group that, nothing stayed the same for the past couple years that we've all been talking. I mean, literally everything changes by the week with all of us. So it's in a good way, in a positive manner of just growth. So I think it's cool that we all push each other, and hopefully this podcast that you guys are doing pushes everyone else to just keep growing and keep this wave going, because it's all freaking awesome. And I'm ready to learn more. I get enjoyment out of it. I'm freaking stoked. You guys have taught me stuff personally, so I'm hype. I can't wait.
Thanks, man.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Brenden, you wanna give the people where they can follow you?
Yeah, man, just BM Exotics on Instagram. And then I have like my personal Facebook page. But if you want to get a hold of me and talk anything, backgrounds, cages, reptiles, the Instagram's where it's at. I basically live on it at this point. So that's it.
And then, for me, it's just Jack Oliver Reptiles on Instagram. You can add me on Facebook if you'd like. Just Jack Oliver. And then please follow the Instagram Beyond the Terrarium. Yes. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a whole 16 people, I think, on there now subscribed. So we're moving up in the world. So go ahead and click that subscribe button to keep up to date with any new releases there, as well as follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. New episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, if you're like Brenden.
No one cares about that time zone.
Just keep in touch, y'all, and these will be coming out every week. So really appreciate anyone who's watching.
Yeah, man.
See ya.
See ya.